Good evening y bienvenidos to Chicago Tonight Latino Voices. I'm Alex Hernandez of Noticias Univision Chicago, which airs every weekday morning at 5 and 6. On the show tonight, as Chicago area communities continue to experience flooding, many are looking to green infrastructure to help soak up future flooding problems. An influx of new migrant students on the first day of school this week. We talked to Chicago Teachers Union President Stacey Davis Gates about resources for language barriers and trauma. New efforts to protect the hundreds of thousands of temp workers in Illinois and move them into permanent jobs. 26th Street comes alive with the music and art of Little Village. Up-and-coming Latin music acts take over Navy Pier this weekend. And a multidisciplinary artist is celebrating nearly 2 decades of work in his first solo show. All that coming up. But our first story tonight, efforts to develop more anti-flooding infrastructure. That's right after this.
Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, is made possible in part by the support of these donors.
After the July 2nd storm that caused catastrophic flooding across Chicago's west side and some western suburbs, many of the residents in those largely Latino and Black communities are still dealing with the damages. Now, some of those communities are exploring green infrastructure solutions that can help prevent future flooding events. Joining us now with more are Efrain Soriano, a reporter for Borderless Magazine and a resident of Cicero, Maya McDonald, also a reporter for Borderless Magazine, and Sam Corona, community organizer for Alliance of the Southeast. He is also a Southeast Side resident. I want to welcome all. Thank you for joining us today. But I want to start with you, Efrain, because you are a Cicero resident. Can you tell us a little bit about what you saw in Cicero during those floodings last month and how widespread was the flooding issue?
Yeah, absolutely. It was devastating for our community. As somebody who lives in Cicero, everywhere that I went, every neighbor that I spoke to was affected by the flooding in some capacity. Every time that I walked through the alleys, I could see all the debris and the garbage that people had to throw out after the flooding. So it was incredibly widespread, and yeah, a lot of people were affected. Personally,
were you affected by the flooding?
I personally wasn't affected that much, apart from some little flooding around our porch, but yeah. A lot of my neighbors were.
Yeah. Sam, going with you, the southeast side wasn't as affected by those storms as the west side and the west suburbs. But it is a place actually where flooding is common after major storms. How does it affect a community to be a site of frequent storms like that?
Well, that's like you said, it's one of the historical issues that we've come to kind of get used of, the issue of flooding our basements. You know, we always end up sometimes heavy rain when rains and it runs off, we end up with little streams on our roadways that end up bleeding into our sidewalks and things like that. So, you know, there's a lot of issues with that, and you know, residents, they lose a lot of valuable things when their basements are flooded. So, you know, and my family has gone through that before. And one of the issues of where we live now is making sure, you know, we have issues that we're at a higher area of, so we don't have as many issues with flooding.
Maya, in your reporting for Borderless, you actually sat in community meetings looking at green infrastructure solutions to mitigate flooding events. Can you tell us a little bit about those meetings and actually what kind of infrastructure are they looking at?
Yeah, so our reporting focused heavily on the Center for Neighborhood Technology's Rain Ready program, which is a program that uses green infrastructure, so natural solutions to help mitigate and stave off flooding. Right now they're working on their Calumet Corridor project, which will help work with 6 Chicago suburbs, Blue Island, Robbins, Riverdale, Calumet Park, Calumet City, and Dalton, to work with community members to establish things like rain gardens and other green infrastructure that helps more effectively mitigate flooding issues.
Yeah, definitely. Efrain, generally speaking, are people in communities like Cicero receptive to ideas like Rain Ready program?
Yeah, I would say so, absolutely. Especially after this second flooding. There was also catastrophic flooding in 2009, which seems like quite a bit ago, but it really wasn't for some of the people that are still paying off loans from those damages. And at this point, it's something that people are very receptive to because we are trying to find preventative measures as opposed to just offering people loans to try and cover the damages that are going to continue to happen, especially with issues like climate change that make this flooding much more possible.
Yeah, it's about prevention, definitely. Going back with you, Sam, financial damages, as we know from flooding, can be significant. Are people in communities like yours typically able to recover enough from insurance to make them whole after a flooding problem?
So I would like to say my experience and talking with residents and things like that, that they're not made whole. The reality is what they lose is never assessed to the value that it is. And, for a lot of these residents, they got the American dream. They own a home. And because of the environmental conditions in an environmental justice community like mine, we become not our homes are not castles no more. They're more like prisons, where we're affected by the smell, a lot of pollution. And then, when it comes flooding, we've got our own in-home pools now. So, our residents are never made whole from that. So it's never where they're able to recover. They can get to a point where they feel they're better at, but they never fully recover because of that. At least that's the sense I've always felt.
Maya, are places around Chicago or elsewhere actually, have you seen that green infrastructure is making a difference after flooding?
Yeah, so one of CNT's first the first Rain Ready community that worked with CNT was Midlothian, suburb of Chicago, and through that program they were able to build rain gardens and permeable pavers, work on their local creeks and to establish detention basins so that their major flooding issues could be staved off, and it has largely been successful. So they're hoping to replicate that in the communities they're working on in this new Calumet Corridor project.
We'll see if it'll be one of those communities. Yeah.
For now, it won't be the Calumet Corridor project. It's working on with those 6 communities until 2026. But CNT hopes that if it's successful, like Midlothian's program was, that they could expand to other communities in and around the city and nationwide.
Right. I'm sure, Efrain, you would like to see it eventually in Cicero as well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. We know, speaking of Cicero, is home to an estimated 18,000 undocumented immigrants. Many, as we know, are not eligible for federal assistance and after flooding events. How do these events affect them?
Yeah, I mean, exactly how you put it. A lot of the people in Cicero are undocumented, and there's a lot of compounding factors that add on to the struggle that people in Cicero have to bounce back after the flooding occurs. One of those is them being working class, and these are tens of thousands of dollars of damages that we're talking about. The other being language access issues. A lot of these undocumented immigrants, that don't have access to these the funds also do not speak English proficiently enough and may have trouble contacting these organizations for their assistance or getting in touch with the right people.
Right. We have less than 30 seconds, but I want to finish off with you, Sam. Green infrastructure, like we just heard, takes some time to put into place. What are some short-term resources your community would like to see?
Well, we've always advocated for any type of development to have permeable parkways and things like that. We also encourage our residents to grow actual plants rather than grass because it tends to absorb a lot more water. And then the southeast side is home to a lot of wetlands, so we would encourage that type of studying to see how the water affects our wetlands to understand what it is that it's doing to the rest of the environment surrounding it.
Sam, thank you so much. Our thanks to Efrain Soriano, Maya McDonald, and Sam Corona, thank you so much for joining us today. And earlier this month, a disaster declaration for Cook County was approved, making a slew of federal resources available to residents who were affected by the flooding through FEMA. You can find details on those resources on our website. Summer has officially come to an end for Chicago Public School students who returned to the classroom this week. As you know, Chicago Tonight recently spoke with Chicago Teachers Union President Stacey Davis Gates about the hopes and challenges of the new school year. That includes also providing resources for an influx of migrant students. Brandon Friedman began by asking whether CPS has enough Spanish-speaking teachers to accommodate these new students.
We know there's not enough of anything to support our migrant families in the city. We are living the legacy of the destruction of the social safety net. And so when we have been talking about affordable housing for years, this is the result of not having it when you see families living outside of police stations. Beyond that, our school district has not put an emphasis over time on making sure that we have multilingual teachers in our school communities. And we are feeling the pain of that right now. What I will say what's different this year than it has been in years past is that there is an overall acknowledgement of the need to recruit more multilingual teachers to the Chicago Public Schools, to make sure that the ones that we have are given some agency.
What are some of your concerns then? You just named some of them, but for the migrant students who are coming, obviously there's the language barrier, but also they're carrying some trauma.
Well, again, when we said a nurse and a social worker in every school, we needed that for the traumatic impacts that our children had previously. That need has grown exponentially. So we are saying yes to what we've already said yes to. Again, the difference now is that we are actually working cooperatively on solutions to make sure that our young people, our families, the people who have been here already are getting what they need.
What would you say some of that cooperation looks like, and what are some of those potential solutions that you all are working on?
So right now we have a group of our members who are going from shelter to police station to make sure that our young people are enrolled in the Chicago Public Schools. So right now our members are enrolling students in the system right now. That was unheard of before this administration. So that's one thing we're doing. We continue to work with community agencies all over the city to make sure that we are offering language support to families. We are working in mutual aid efforts to make sure that there's clothing, that there are toiletries, and that we're just meeting the need. We are a part of the coalition now. We're not fighting to be a part of the coalition.
Again, that was Brandis Friedman speaking with CTU President Stacey Davis Gates earlier this week on Chicago Tonight. You can find the full conversation on our website. We continue with more. Around 800,000 Illinoisan residents are working in temporary jobs, according to industry estimates. That has more than doubled over the last 2 decades. Those temps often don't know where they'll be working from one day to the next, or if they'll even be working. And that's a group of workers that advocates, let's say, are more vulnerable to harassment and abuse, including so-called perma-temping, where workers are held back from getting hired full-time. As Chicago Tonight's Nick Blumberg reports, a bill signed by Governor J.B. Pritzker earlier this month aims to create new protections for temps.
Jose Frausto says temporary work is supposed to be just that, temporary. But he says many Illinois companies have created what advocates call permatemps.
A lot of these workers are being working in these companies for 5, 10, some people over 15 years as temp workers.
At the end of their term, Frausto says the worker gets fired and then promptly rehired, often into the same role, to ensure they remain classified as temporary.
Now it's after 90 days, temp workers are going to have the right to become permanent workers for the company.
With pay and benefits equal to full-time employees, a way to incentivize companies to hire the temps as staff. That's just one part of a measure lawmakers in Springfield passed during the spring session. The bill also mandates new safety standards. Advocates say temp workers often have little or no training on potentially dangerous equipment in warehouses or factories.
They've left me working 3 machines at once without any training. They don't tell me how to turn off the machinery or if it gets stuck, what I have to do.
And for temp worker Brisa Chavez and many others, there's a language barrier and what advocates say is a pattern of exploitation.
Most of the workers that fill up the temp work industry, they're black and brown. Many of these, especially amongst the Latino community, the ones that I represent, tend to be undocumented. I think that for the most part, it's corporations trying to make sure they can get labor as cheap as possible.
While industry groups ended up neutral on the bill, the American Staffing Association sent WTTW News a letter it wrote to Governor J.B. Pritzker outlining its concerns. Quote, to ensure that affected staffing agencies understand the criteria the state will use in implementing the equal pay provisions, we request that enforcement of those provisions be stayed until final regulations are issued.
Staffing agencies are trying to connect people to work, but what we're attacking is permit temping.
For its part, a representative of the Staffing Services Association of Illinois echoed the concerns about the equal pay provision and added, quote, Illinois already has one of the toughest laws in the country protecting staffing workers, something our organizations worked on and implemented. There are very few complaints filed with the state against any of our members. But worker advocates say an understaffed Department of Labor can't keep up with enforcing existing protections.
They were just severely understaffed, and that for the whole state that they only have a handful of investigators.
Another key provision of the bill, allowing worker centers and other advocacy groups to help people who make allegations of harassment, abuse, wage theft, or discrimination.
They really mistreated people.
Norman Green says he's been working as a temp for almost 20 years. He was part of the lobbying effort to get the new protections for temps passed.
They be saying that you need to be there early, sign your name first, and you go out and get work. And I do them things and still wasn't getting work, so it was like real hard. I got 8 kids at home.
Green hopes new protections and more robust enforcement will be a boon to the hundreds of thousands of temps like him across the state.
If a person come in and bust their butt at work, let them work. Don't judge us for our skin color or mistreat of women.
Que no aguanten abusos, porque al aguantarse esos abusos.
You don't have to put up with that abuse. It eventually starts affecting your personal life. You start to bring all that weight home.
For Chicago Tonight Latino Voices, I'm Nick Blumberg.
The measure took effect immediately with the governor's signature, actually. And we're back with more Chicago Tonight Latino Voices right after this. The pandemic put 26th Street's annual music fest, Villapalooza, on hold for a few years, but they're back in full force this year to rock Little Village. The festival's organizers say this year's celebration makes more space than ever for young local artists to showcase their community and culture.
Villapalooza is essentially a music festival where you can find a range of different genres of performers, live music, a DJ. We also have like activities for families, and also we highlight a lot of local talented artists. We have Caína, Gino Rockin' Pro Romo, Crudos 2.0, y Los Cabros is one of our top headliners. We have like ska, we have like DJ house music, kind of things that Chicago is known for. We also have cumbia, and we'll have traditional folklorico dance performers as well. So it's a huge range. We have over 40 vendors. A lot of them are youth. We have artists like Clue, who was recently highlighted, Esme, Chocololi. We also have a lot of artists that do crochet projects, right? That do original paintings, digital art, stickers, all local talent from the neighborhood. We're going to have a couple of activities happening throughout the event. Obviously, we'll have food vendors as well, but we'll also have a playground section that is supported by the Chamber of Commerce. We will have our Chicago Youth Boxing Club doing a sparring event that is live and again, free for the community. We'll have luchadores there. So we encourage people to come. We encourage people to explore and walk down the street from Central Park all the way to Holman is where our festival will be at. Enjoy what we have to offer.
Villapalooza kicks off on Saturday, August 26th. Music and activities will take place all day along 26th Street between Holman and Central Park, and it's well, free to attend. You'll find more on that on our website as well. And now to arts correspondent Angel Lidu, who has another look at another attraction here in the city. Angel.
Now, Alex, a local screen printer is debuting his life's work for the first time ever at a South Side Art Center. Now, he recently shared with us how he's using the medium to connect with Black and Brown communities. Take a look.
This is Multiples and Multitudes. It's an exhibition that spans my work over the last, 15, 18 years.
For the last nearly 2 decades, artist William Estrada has been practicing art of all mediums. Those visuals are now on display at the Hyde Park Art Center.
So there's multiple projects being exhibited as part of the exhibition. The Family Portrait Project came about from a conversation that I was having with my mother about our multiple migrations, right, and moving across the city, across the nation. I've taken between 12 and 15,000 photographs, but then of individuals and families, I have probably around 5,000.
Estrada's experience extends beyond photography. He currently teaches screen printing at UIC, but has teaching roots further south as well.
All right, folks, let's get started. Let me know how I can help. I've been working at the Hyde Park Art Center as a teaching artist because it's really guided a lot of the thinking and a lot of the ways that I make with community members and public. So Hyde Park Art Center is one of the best places where I could have my first solo exhibition, and it has been a huge influence in my practice.
But if you're gonna do light colors, always do the light colors first.
Now I live in Cicero, and most of my work happens in Lodo Village in North Lawndale. So part of the conversations that I was interested in having, specifically in that intersection of Pulaski, Cermak, and Ogden, is that it's this border, right, between Black and Brown neighborhoods. So I was really interested in engaging conversations with Black and Brown families specifically, thinking about, how we're represented, the lack of representation also, but also thinking about the rich histories that exist in our neighborhoods.
And with that, Estrada and his screen printer hit the streets. And unlike other mediums, the artist says screen printing is both accessible and affordable.
Most of these are works that I created in collaboration with others, right? There's these prints right here that were actually created through the Mobile Street Art Cart. These all were created with the intention of the public finishing them off. And a lot of the prints that I create are very reminiscent of coloring sheets, or as the exhibition referred to them as Mad Libs, right? Where the public is invited to add to them and to finish them. Thinking about the conversation that we were having with North Lawndale residents, right? Around reclaiming the neighborhood, right? To the violence that is happening across Chicago, and being able to reclaim spaces, right? So they feel safe to us, and so they feel safe to our neighbors. I think I want to remind folks that there is so much beauty and brilliance in Black and Brown communities. We need to invest in it, and we need to support it, and we need to celebrate it, so more art can be created in Black and Brown communities.
Now you can see William Estrada, Multiples and Multitudes at the Hyde Park Art Center now through October 29th. Now, Alex, back to you.
Thank you, Angel. After this week's hot weather, doesn't a day at the lake listening to music sound perfect? Well, the 7th annual Latinx Music Festival takes over Navy Pier this weekend with 2 full days and nights of performances showcasing emerging Latino artists.
So we're happy to host our 7th edition of Latinx, which is a free 2-day festival featuring cutting-edge music from Latinx artists with a focus on new musical trends. We will have over 15 artists performing across 3 stages: late stage at Polk Brothers Park in the front, the wave wall platform, which is right next to the Ferris wheel, as well as the last stage, which is the Tangled Roots Beer Garden on the east side of the pier. We'll also have local vendors participating in artisan markets throughout the pier all weekend long, in conjunction with the performances. We work with an organization called Future Roots, which is a Chicago-based musical collective that has music professionals and cultural innovators who work to identify emerging artists to really showcase these new musical trends. So we're really excited. It's going to be a beautiful weekend. The forecast looks great. Anyone interested in just, coming to the pier, listening to music, once again, it's a free festival and certainly a continuation of just great music that we've had this summer.
Latinx Music Fest is at Navy Pier, like you heard, from Saturday, August 26th through Sunday, August 27th, and it's free to attend. You'll find more information on our website. That's going to be our show for tonight. Make sure to join WTTW News reporter Joanna Hernandez this Monday, August 28th at noon for our next virtual Chicago Tonight Voices community conversation. She'll be discussing with Chicago Public Schools and community leaders what back-to-school safety for youth looks like following the first full week of classes. To RSVP, visit WTTW.com/events. And also, don't forget to tune in to Noticias Univision Chicago every weekday morning. I'll be waiting for you at 5 and 6. And for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Latino Voices, I'm Alex Hernandez. Muy buenas noches.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm, and proud sponsor of programming that offers advice and strategies to enhance the physical and mental well-being of fellow legal practitioners in Illinois.
Why are you laughing?
Think of the media focus. This is really going to put us on the map.
Frank, the poor woman is dead.
I know all about plotting crime.
I must admit, as an avid reader of whodunits, I'd certainly wipe to the gun clean myself.
More holes in this coroner's report than Swiss cheese.
Murder cover-up at Briar Lane? Someone wanted this woman dead. We need to find out why.